A massive power outage, confronting racial profiling, reducing prison sentences, and the governor says just fix the roads. Stay put. MiWeek starts right now.
Recently, Michigan's economy has begun to turn around. Michigan's gained over 250,000 new jobs. We've paid off $20 billion in long-term debt. And our population is increasing for the first time in a decade. But to make Michigan a top 10 state, there's still plenty of work to be done. Step up and help put Michigan on top. Learn what you can do at MichiganTurnaroundPlan.com.
Funding is also provided by Delta.
Hello and welcome to MiWeek. Thanks so much for joining us. I'm Christy McDonald. Just as Detroit prepares to exit from bankruptcy, we get hit with a reminder of the city's massive infrastructure problems. The lights went out when an old power cable malfunctioned. Is this another reminder of how much work needs to happen to rebuild Detroit? Also coming up, as we watch the events in Ferguson, Missouri, we have to wonder, will racial profiling ever go away? We'll examine the relationship between Detroit cops and residents. Also, it's the lame duck session, but the legislature could take on a bill that would shorten prison sentences for nonviolent offenders. But others are saying not so fast. And the governor takes his Fix the Roads campaign on the road. It is all coming up for you on MiWeek. But we do start this week with this week's power outage that left many city buildings, courthouses, schools, and firehouses without power. It also created a frightening situation for people who were actually trapped in elevators and in darkened hallways. The culprit? A faulty cable in the city-run power grid. And in the process of trying to restore power, the entire system shut down. Meanwhile, under a new $200 million plan, DTE is upgrading the power equipment and the city is getting out of the electricity business. Will this solve the city's long-standing problem? We're going to start our discussion there with our MiWeek contributors, Nolan Finley of the Detroit News and Stephen Henderson of the Detroit Free Press. Gentlemen, it's good to see you. You know, when the lights went out on Tuesday in Detroit, the first thing I thought of is all the pundits are going to come out with a funny joke as, oh, Detroit couldn't pay their bills. So, of course, the lights went out, which also goes to the point where we see this as another reminder that all the positive news coming out of bankruptcy, and yes, it is very positive, that this is still the nagging infrastructure problems that the city has. Steve, I'm going to start with you on this.
Yeah, well, I mean, Brian Williams on the NBC Nightly News that night led the newscast with the story about the power outage. So I mean, this is the kind of thing that people wait for, I think, to sort of remind the nation of how dysfunctional this place is, how much work there still is to do. Of course, the story was very surface and got some stuff sort of wrong. It's another black eye for the city, but this is one that we deserve because it's been a long time that we've been arguing about how to deal with this public lighting department in this grid that's 50 years old and has never been maintained or invested in. You know, we can't get off of that fast enough to get to just DTE, but it's going to take time.
Yeah, I mean, it's decades of neglect, and it's not just the electric grid. We know the water and sewage network is also in just abject disrepair. I think it'll help going to DTE, but you know, DTE has its problems too. I mean, we have a lot of power outages in this region. I mean, they don't keep up with as well as they should with the tree trimming. We've got very few miles of underground cable here, you know, so we're subject to winds and ice storms and whatever. The infrastructure in this entire region, both public and private, needs a lot of attention, a lot of investment.
All right, so we talked about the growing pains of how they're going to eventually switch over this system, and it's going to take a number of years. Do we have a number of years to switch over on this grid to get away from, I guess, what would be the embarrassment, the national embarrassment of, oh, the lights go out in the main downtown grid in all of these public buildings? Is there any way to speed up that process?
Well, DT is actually moving pretty fast, and the way this works is that because there's a grid that exists for these buildings that is public infrastructure. DTE is trying to essentially replace that and they still have to connect at the city's old power plant, Mistursky, which is really not being used. It's not generating its own power, but it is the sort of conduit between the DTE grid and the public grid. That apparently is where the problem was this week. There are 5, I guess, cables that connect there. A couple of them went down, and the backups weren't available. That's the kind of thing that's going to go on for a while until they can upgrade not just the plant but also the grid to all the buildings. But again, this is something we should have done 20, 25 years ago when it was obvious that the city's own power generation system was aging, was not being maintained, but we fought about it for 20 years, right? Everyone in Detroit was saying, well, this is our power grid. It's important for us to maintain it. It's important for us to maintain control of it. And meanwhile, it kept deteriorating. So now we're in a position where we're going to deal with outages until DTE can switch it all over.
And a lot of like patching like a flat tire, just keep kind of trying to patch it along, Nolan.
Yeah, but I do think it's important to remember most of downtown wasn't blacked out. I mean, most workers
It's all
who work
government.
Right, it was all the government buildings, not private businesses.
It was a little bit overplayed, I think, in the national press that, Detroit blacked out. Part of Detroit blacked out, but we kept on working.
Oh, you guys kept on working? Well, that's always good to know.
I mean, I think, it's government buildings and
It's the municipal grid.
Wayne State University, the museums, the Detroit Medical Center, though, I think is also on that grid. And again, you have firehouses and things that people really rely on for public safety that we're sitting in the dark. So it's not a joke. I mean, it's an embarrassment for a reason, for a substantive reason that we just got to do better. There are third world cities where you put up with all kinds of crazy stuff, but the power doesn't go off or the street lights don't go off at night. We should be better than that.
And there's still a lot of work ahead. Okay, moving on, the fatal shooting of unarmed black teenager Michael Brown by a white police officer in Ferguson, Missouri, has again placed the nation's spotlight on the issue of racial profiling. Only 67% of Ferguson's population is black, but data from last year shows 86% of the stops made by police and 92% of the searches that took place involved African Americans. Of course, racial profiling not only opens law enforcement agencies to civil rights lawsuits, but it also strains the relations between police and citizens. How big of a problem is racial profiling in Detroit? And I don't think you can ignore what's happening nationally as well in the Eric Gardner case that happened yesterday in New York City, and people talking about the mistrust of the police department in terms of the African American community, and also not trusting the justice system. So, but before we jump into, I think, the larger conversation of that, let's talk about what's happening here in Detroit and what kind of programs we're seeing in terms of community polices and community policing, and what kind of relationships we're seeing with police in the community. I'm going to start with you, Nolan.
Well, I think Chief Craig recognizes the importance of building trust between the department and the citizens, the police and the community. You can't look, you have to look at cops, and cops have to look at their jobs as protecting and serving. They're not there to control. They're not there to guard. These people aren't inmates. And if you look at Ferguson, 53 members of that police department, 50 of them are white in a city that's 2/3 black. That's not how you build trust between a department and a community. And I think Greg is very, very aware of the need to have that trust in place, those relationships in place, so that when something like this happens, and there will inevitably be conflict between police and citizens, but when it happens, people don't blow up and say, see, this is indicative of a larger problem. If you have the trust in place, you can take time, you get the benefit of the doubt and the time to sort through what actually happened.
And trust is something that you can't very easily measure.
Right.
Stephen.
No, it's not. Although I think one measurement here is how infrequently we see this kind of reaction to police-involved shootings, which we have. We have those
all the time
in Detroit. Someone was telling me about a recent shooting on the west side, a police-involved shooting, that they were fearful that some folks in the neighborhood were starting to get really upset about and talking about making a big deal about it. So the chief dispatched the community relations officers over there immediately to go talk and listen to people, explain what happened, deal with the thing before it blows up into a major incident. And I think that's the kind of activity that does put you in a different place than someplace like Ferguson or someplace like New York. Also remember, this is a department that can really pat itself on the back about that. Just 10 years ago, you know, they were looking at federal oversight for this kind of problem. I mean, you used to have a lot of abuse in the police department here, a lot of civil rights violations. They're working real hard to clean that up, and I think we're in a really different place because of their efforts and because of the efforts that the community has made to try to mend that relationship.
But it's something that needs constant attention, and you have to recruit your police officers from your community. And you see a number of particularly charter schools now setting up programs for kids who want to go into law enforcement. I think that's the perfect solution. You hire your police from your community, and they have a better understanding of the people they're serving there, and there's more trust when there's familiarity. But you bring a whole lot of people into this Detroit Police Department who didn't live here, didn't grow up here, don't understand the community. You're going to have the same kind of problems.
Let's look at the big picture, though, that there is a general mistrust between the African American community and law enforcement, and a lot of this and a lot of the concern is now bubbling up in the last 2 weeks. And people say now is the time for a true conversation about race and talking about dealing with the police department. What does a true conversation really look like?
I never know what that means when we say that. I mean, I'm as frustrated as anybody. I mean, as the father of a brown-skinned boy who's starting to look like a teenager. You know, these kids who are being shot by the cops, these incidents, say to me that his life is not going to be valued, is not valued the same as everybody else's. So this is real stuff, and I think a lot of parents are very, very fearful for very good reasons. I think it's always a policy question, and like what Nolan was saying, what does the police force look like? How are they trained? What's the relationship between them and the community? Those are the things that you got to focus on. I think talking about race is important. We don't do it enough. We don't acknowledge the lingering racial problems that we have in this country. But I think the more practical end of that is just dealing with this is a police problem.
Yes.
This is an authority problem that is aggravated by race, and there are things we can do to pull the cops back and repair the way that they deal with people.
I think that's the key here. I mean, we can set out and say, oh gosh, we're going to solve the racial divide in America, or we're going to deal with a specific problem. You mentioned the Staten Island case with this Eric Garner yesterday. I mean, the police seem to feel a need to react in that incident instead of just letting this guy blow out. I mean, he wasn't threatening anybody. He didn't appear to be hurting anybody. He was just standing there yapping. And, what would it have taken maybe to wait another 20 minutes till he burned himself out and sat down, Right. Instead, they sort of grabbed him and tried to bring him down. And yeah, again, if you get in a physical confrontation with police, chances are you're going to lose. And it's a stupid thing to do, but there was no reason to provoke that one.
And I think also the visceral reaction that people have to this is they are able to see this on video. They were able to see this play out and see a man say, "I can't breathe," 11 times and be placed in a chokehold like that. Whereas in Ferguson, we didn't know exactly what happened. We had conflicting witness accounts. We had what the police officer said, "We'll never hear from Michael Brown." But when you see that happen on video, then that gets people coming from it in a different direction.
But why not tell the police, or why not train the police that in certain circumstances it's okay to let it go for a while, to just stand down for a minute until things calm down. I mean, every situation doesn't merit an immediate reaction.
There's this notion that any challenge to authority has to be met with force. And I think that's not just among the New York police or the Ferguson police. That's a comp thing. There are some training gaps that need to be filled here in terms of how you teach people to deal with these things. One of the things I'm really worried about in Detroit going forward is the lack of incentive for high quality people to become Detroit officers. The pay is abysmally low now. We've gotten rid of the pensions that used to attract people to that job, and the job's super dangerous all the time. So what kind of people are you really going to attract to that profession? We've got to take a look at that. We have to make sure that the people who want to be cops want to protect people and are not on some sort of power trip or.
Last
I
word
think
on this,
cops
Nolan.
need a pretty good schooling on citizens' rights. I mean, what you can do, what you can't do. You got a gun and a badge, that doesn't make you some sort of Gestapo-type figure. Citizens have rights. You have to respect them.
All right, moving on to Lansing. There is a package of bills in the legislature that would change sentencing guidelines and the parole and probation process for some felons, especially for nonviolent offenders. It turns out that Michigan prisoners are currently locked up 17 months longer than the national average. The proposed legislation would reduce that prison and jail time, but it doesn't meet with the approval of law enforcement groups and the Attorney General, Bill Schuette. So is this the best way to deal with this solution? And we also have to look at, in terms of budget-wise, Michigan spends about $2 billion on corrections, and that is at the top in terms of across the country. So I think it's interesting that this is coming up in lame duck, and maybe it's not getting the attention it needs, but starting the conversation of true prison reform here in Michigan. What do you think, Nolan?
Well, I think it's a start. I think we do lock too many people up for too long. I think we need we need to step back and take a real hard look at who we lock up and why. I think we should be using the prisons to lock up people who are dangerous to society. And we should be finding alternative methods that are just as effective for punishing everyone else. There's no point locking somebody away because you're mad at them or gosh, you made a bad choice. Now you're going to spend 10 years behind bars. That's expensive for us. Are there other ways of punishing people that wouldn't be so costly for society and so ruinous for the individual? And I think this is a start, but we got a long way to go on that discussion.
Yeah, so how do you balance that, though, Stephen, with public safety issues and respecting the victims in this case as well?
Well, I mean, I think a lot of the crimes that we're talking about are quote-unquote victimless. I mean, no one's talking about taking people who've committed violent crime and reducing their sentences or letting them back out before they're ready. This is people who are dealing drugs, for instance. Not that that's entirely victimless, but it is not a preying on another person kind of crime. I think we don't do a good job with that here, and the money says that. The comparison to other states say that. This has been a conversation that's been long overdue. It surprised me that it came up in this session of lame duck. I don't think anybody was anticipating that, and I don't think it has much of a chance of passing. It probably needs more discussion, but it is good to get it on the table. I think it's something the governor's definitely interested in. The business community has been saying for a long time that the focus on prison spending is out of control.
We spend more on prisons we do on
higher ed.
On higher ed, but you could almost make that argument in other places as well. I mean, that money could go to many other places in the budget.
But I think Steve hit on the key. We've got to rethink this drug war. You could change that tomorrow into a budget drain, into a budget positive. If you do what Colorado's done, legalize some drugs, marijuana, they legalize, tax it, regulate it, stop putting people in prison for it and start collecting taxes off of it, because we've been doing this for 35 years now and people are still smoking dope, for God's sake.
Well, right. Well, and I mean, I think that we're moving toward that more rational way of dealing with it. My concern is that we're moving really fast and we're not considering things like the legal infrastructure to deal with marijuana if it were legal. For instance, if the cops pull you over and you've been smoking a joint, how do they test you to determine that? The same way you would do with alcohol. We just haven't thought these things through.
That's another issue. I mean, if you're driving, it should be the offense. I mean, if you're driving, there's laws to deal with people who drive
impaired.
So, but who
there
drive
isn't
poorly.
right.
I mean, if you're pulling somebody over because they're reckless driving or careless driving, cite them for that. You don't need to blow in this or blow in that. The offense is what they were doing.
All right, so getting back to this 4-bill package, you don't think there's going to be any kind of traction here in lame duck?
I don't think so. I mean, I would be shocked if this passed in lame duck. I think the idea, though, might be to push it into
yeah, well, it has to start all over. And it's not going to go in lame duck because Schuette's objecting. The Attorney General is objecting to it. But, I mean, this is something that's coming because the state can't afford to keep locking this many people up for so long. It's just busting the budget.
All right, well, let's talk about the another issue that's before the legislature during the lame duck session, how to fix Michigan's crumbling roads. We've talked about this. You know, Governor Snyder is making a public push for a major road funding proposal. He took his campaign on the road this week. So how much more video of the governor in a hard hat are we going to see over the next few weeks before we have some kind of agreement on a road funding package? But the truck weight part of that got taken out this week. That's a no.
Well, I mean, what they were trying to do, in my opinion, what they were trying to do with truck weights was the wrong approach. I don't think.
What do you think they should have done?
I don't think you deal with limiting weights, because that doesn't really solve your problem. I mean, yes, it gets a heavier truck off the road, but then you're just dividing that load among more trucks, so now your usage goes up in terms of how many trucks are on the roads. I think the smart approach would have been to fine trucks for heavy weights, right? Make you pay, if you're going to bring a heavy load through Michigan, you're going to pay more for it. So those bills were, I think, headed in the wrong direction. Anyway, we still do need to talk about truck weights, and I think the governor wants to do that. Right now, he seems content to push through what we've got from the Senate as a start, raise about $1 billion and a half dollars. But I think even if he gets that, we'll see him come back to it again.
But the one thing that bill did, the truck weight bill did, was recognize the public sentiment here. There is no public sentiment for raising the gas tax without addressing some of these other issues, because people believe truck weights are beating the roads to death. I don't know if that's true or not, but we should find out. They believe that, you know, the quality of the work is not as good here as it is in other places. We should address that issue. They believe that, you know, there's enough money coming in and we're just misspending it. All those things should be addressed as part of this road bill package, because there is no public support for it. I do believe we're going to get a road bill in lame duck, though. I think it'll come down to the wire, but you know, I'm not sure the public's going to rally to it.
All right, real quick, in the short time that we have left, we want to talk about the Elliott Larson Civil Rights Act and the fact that has gone nowhere. Stephen, tell us how it all kind of happened.
Well, I mean, I think you had a bill that divided people because it was not going to include transgender folks. You had a lot of people rallying, though, around the idea of expanding Elliott Larson to cover sexual orientation of some kind. I think at the last minute, the supporters of the bill have decided, of the idea of expanding it, have decided that they can't do it without everybody.
Not the supporters, some supporters.
Some supporters.
I mean, sort of the Tea Party wing of the Democratic Party. I mean, you had a Republican legislature ready to sign off on adding the word sexual orientation to the Civil Rights Act. That was huge. The business community that was the other half of this coalition thought they had a victory, and you have the ACLU just simply shot itself in the foot. Wanting the perfect, they killed the possible, because this is not going to come up again.
I was going to say, so this will not come around again.
I think it'd be very hard to get it back. I got to say that from a moral perspective, I think they're right. That the concern here is that somebody will be left out, and I don't think if you're the ACLU, you can't afford, I think, to say it's okay to not discriminate against these people, but to discriminate against
how would they have been left out if you put the word sexual orientation in there? You could stretch that to cover a whole lot of things. And I believe the courts would have interpreted sexual orientation to cover transgender. They had a chance here to do something
and they blew that.
They haven't been able to do in 20 years and won't be able to do for another 5 or 10.
All right, we're going to have to leave it there. That is going to do it for My Week. Thanks so much for joining us. Make sure you find us at myweek.org and on Facebook and on Twitter. I'm Christy McDonald. For all of us at Detroit Public TV, we will see you next week. Take care.